Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman. It is time to bring the orange here on the Pure Report, and I'm happy to welcome a longtime colleague, dare I say friend.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Robert Quimbey, currently consulting field solution architect, but I'm really anxious to get into all the other fun stuff you've done here at Everpure, but welcome.
Thank you.
First time, long time, as people say, calling into radio shows.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Long time listener.
Longtime listener, now viewer. It's great to have you in. Thanks for flying down. So for people watching, listening, you are from the Seattle area.
Yes.
But I kind of coaxed you to come down because we had two really exciting topics to cover today, and we'll get into those: ActiveCluster File and Azure Local, and you've been involved with those.
Yes.
Just like you have at Everpure for so many years, though, just involved in so many interesting technologies because you weren't always in the FSA role. Talk about where you got started here.
Correct. I first started at Pure. I was in a solutions architect.
Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years and then kind of was wearing the PM hat more and more.
Yeah.
And so I at one point owned all of the Microsoft integrations at Pure, now Everpure, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How did you've always had kind of that Microsoft background,
Yes.
though, right? Was that what you
Yes.
built your, like, coming out of schooling, or in your career, you really got deep into all the Microsoft integrations and technologies?
Definitely. So
Yeah.
my first job after I was my own little ISP was at Microsoft,
Okay.
and I was on the Exchange team. And so my focus was everything Exchange. Really loved the hardware,
Yeah.
so did a lot with storage. Back at that point in time, it was a different world. It was BlackBerries and 10 IOPS per user when you could get 20 IOPS out of a hard drive. So you'd bring in the big SANs and try to figure out how to make this work, and that was me. And so I did a lot.
So yeah, you were that connection. You were that translation mechanism between storage and between basically the file management. Because when you're talking Exchange, you're pre-cloud, right? So you're all on-prem. I mean, when I joined here, it was like, oh, well, we have an Exchange server solution.
Yes.
And we monetize it pretty well because everybody is using this on-prem before everything got kind of cloud-based.
And not just on-prem, but you were dedicated to a piece of hardware. So you were backing up this one server. You have to restore that one server.
Of course, Exchange server. And that was what you spent a lot of your time. Like, I know there's white papers that are still out there that you've done.
There are a few,
We went through, like, how to use Pure Storage and use Flash Array to optimize the performance of Exchange server, because there's nothing worse than if you're trying to do email and you're just sitting there waiting for things to delete, to refresh, to come up. Like, it slows down productivity.
And even today,
Yeah.
there are customers that deploy on-premises Exchange.
Yeah.
And something that we'll get to in a little bit, there's a little problem with Exchange in the cloud, where you may not be able to guarantee in some parts of the world that it is within the sovereign boundaries of your country.
On-prem versus
so now they have an
sovereignty.
on-premises Microsoft 365 called Microsoft 365 Local that will run on Azure Local that we'll get to talk about. So it's coming back.
I love that. And so I was a little unfair to you. I did combine two things together that are kind of related. Like, they're related from the standpoint of, at Everpure, we're always innovating and trying to deliver value to our customers, our end users, and help our partners as well. So they're two kind of disparate things, but you've been involved in both. So it's like, two birds, one stone, two birds, one Quimby, two birds, one Q. Let's bring it. How are you liking the new role? How are you liking you're field facing now?
I am.
You're fully working with customers, which you always were.
Yes.
It's not like you weren't when you were in the PM side or solution architecting. You were solving problems, but you were like a layer or two, you were kind of back in the closet, in the dark, sort of working on things, right?
What's changed is the percentages.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could say, hey, 10% you'd get into a big support issue, 20% you'd be dealing with customers, 70% you're helping to build the
Doing
thing,
the dev,
right? Or maybe helping consult on the white papers. And now I'm doing all of the same things. It's just the percentages
You're kind of flipped
flipped
around. You're like 70% with customers, which I love, right? You're so well versed and well steeped in what we do for so many years, as well as with these new modern things. And you really get to touch on like three areas that you're super passionate about, right?
But I've learned so much in the last year and a half. And one of the big ones is I was always the guy that you would grab because we have this problem, solve this problem.
Right.
And now that is the smallest piece of it. Now it's more important for me to understand and ask questions.
Sure.
And figure out what not is this one little problem, but what is the entire solution set that they're trying to do, the use case, and trying to discover all these other things that are not on the flash array that maybe should be, or maybe we could help them get business value by saving them time.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of time.
That's really fun. That's
So
really
I've
exciting.
learned to be quiet and listen
Yeah.
and apply that experience into helping the customer be successful and not just solve the problem.
Yeah. And it's more asking questions to learn and understand rather than asking questions to fix
it, right.
something, right? Which is a different, which is the right skill, right?
Yep.
For your solution architect. Oh, why is this broken? Why doesn't this work? You know, what do we need to fix? As opposed to, okay, tell me about your situation here, what you're running.
Definitely.
What's not working well for you, and then you do have to listen, right, and not jump to conclusions.
Yes, and
right?
the whole ecosystem, kind of understanding, getting the ability to do that discovery, because, okay, I'm running a database.
Yeah.
I'm running a database on this platform. Well, how are you backing it up? What about your BCDR? How are you getting some of that data into the cloud should you need to?
Yeah.
Et cetera. And
Are you
that
exploring
becomes
containers? Are you looking at
Yes,
containerizing? Right.
definitely.
Yeah. It's fascinating because it's the entire scope of what we do here, and all those things that, frankly, even the way we treated them, even when I was running solutions marketing, we looked at them in more of like a siloed approach.
Yep.
Even though I knew they were related. Right. It was like, well, I looked at database. Like 80% of databases are virtualized in some fashion. Why aren't we going out and conversing with potential prospects and users with both of these? But then you get in the back end of how marketing works with, campaigns and metrics and measurement,
Right.
which is great. You are where you are because you can now go look in this holistic fashion and just say, no, I'm here to solve big problems for you. Tell me about what's going on.
Definitely.
It's really
I love
great.
it.
I love that you're happy in that new role. It is super exciting. It is a great team that you're on. I've had Mr. Joyce on and
man. Yeah, he is
Mr.
superb.
Nocentino
Yes.
and folks from Tristan's team. Like they just, the Field Solution Architect org does such a great job. How do you now stay involved with what we're doing here back at corporate and in development? Because you are now a step removed. Right before you were in the thick of it, PM, Solution Architect, kind of another layer removed now. Have you found it harder to keep up with things that are going on in development, or is it bi-directional? Now you get to go, oh, I heard this thing and I can participate in an RFE, for example.
Right.
Is that something that you're doing?
I would say that it's more difficult for people in my role
Okay.
to hook up with what is going on at corporate, what's going on, what we're working on, et cetera. Because of my past history and experience, I tend to get pulled in
Yeah.
on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so, we've only recently had a solution, and this is completely off topic, with Nutanix, right? It's
Yeah.
only been,
Yeah.
half a year, but I've been working on it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And there is a little thing that we're going to talk about shortly, Azure Local. That has kind of been me wandering the desert for 4.5 years by myself, and only in the last year do I have a small army of folks helping, and that's super exciting. On the file side, virtual machine infrastructure wasn't the use case that the BU was leading with. Right? It was like only recently, like in the last couple of years, do you hear about NFS for a VMware data store, right? But that wasn't the use case that they were leading with. It's like, this is unstructured data, this is file and object. There's 100 use cases they're going after. And so I was really proactive and really kind of gluing myself to some of the PMs and just kind of being a champion for some of our customers that are demanding this. And
Yeah.
if Everpure is going to seriously convert tons of no-block NetApp 10-tree customers, then we have to not just do these hundreds of use cases, but also be a viable platform for databases and virtualization.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'm really plugged in there, and it's been exciting.
And you have all those relationships too. And
It helps.
And the knowledge and the connection into Microsoft. And so the Azure Local thing makes sense. I'm happy. I'm sure Mr. Langer also was of the opinion that we should look at VMware NFS and VMFS things to, to include in the use
Definitely.
case, even if they weren't, which is great. It's a great segue. You've set me up with the whole NAS and file storage. This is a part of the episode where I get to some stats that I pull out of thin air using
Awesome.
the Google search machine. For this one, I really just looked at the NAS market, right? So looking at that and where it's going to go. And look, storage is growing in general, but I was a little shocked. Like NAS growing from 33 billion in 24 to exceed 62 in 2030. So close
Almost
to
a double.
doubling, and driven, here we go, by unstructured data growth, right? And this is why we have the unstructured FSA team that focus on file and object. So it's very germane to what you just mentioned, right? Well, okay, we have this VMware thing, but also why the PM team was looking at unstructured file, object, other use cases. Do those numbers shock you? Like what stands out, or is it just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense?
They don't shock me.
There should be growth.
I mean, we always have capacity growth.
Yeah.
And then we're getting denser and denser as well. But all things considered, everything's growing, right? It's not just the fact that, it's half the footprint and triple the capacity, right? It's like, no, everything is growing. From an unstructured and file perspective, most of the growth that I'm seeing is in the AI space. Right? If you're looking at just, I am connecting to a file share and doing something, it's growing, but not doubling in a couple of years,
It's
right?
rather mature too, right? I mean, that's something that's like the AI is
This is like
newish.
30, 40 years.
Right.
Right.
It's
you've got your file
storage.
shares, you've got your, redirected home directories, you've got some customers that are wanting to put their platform on it, their virtual machines and their containers because the file share is easier to manage. There are some customers that, are really focused on, trying to do some of these new applications on object, right? And the fact that object is something where, Everpure has a strength. And if you've been watching, the news, you're seeing where we're bringing that to more of our platforms.
That's right. That's right.
Pretty exciting.
Platform approach, all connected by Fusion. Super exciting to have that. I want to dive into things that we've covered, and I'll go back because I didn't hit this at the top. So I'm calling this one 2 with Q, but people may not know the Q thing. Robert Quimbey. And before we hit record, you did remind me that there was a time, and I think I was included in that, where we had a lot of Roberts.
There were a lot of Robs.
Right?
Yep.
There was Barks, and he didn't go by Robert, he went by Barks. And then I came on board, and I can't remember even who the others are, so we just started calling you Q.
Yep.
So this is 2 with Q. And
I'm a big Star Trek nerd.
2 with, that works too. 2 with Q, and we're doing, these 2 solution areas, somewhat closely related. I want to hit ActiveCluster file first, but I'd love for you to start because you were there. I came in just right around the same time of ActiveCluster original, right? ActiveCluster, when that came out, 2018-ish.
That's about right.
Right, for that, and had some great hallmarks, like really easy to set up, no extra licensing cost added into the mix. And it just goes with something that I cover quite frequently on the podcast is like we sometimes don't debut technology in an aggressive fashion.
Right.
And it's not, it doesn't hold us back, but we're basically listening more and listening longer, but also looking at what doesn't work that customers don't like about other solutions and then building something better. And that was truly what we did with ActiveCluster.
Definitely. It's a little bit harder when it's included, right? I've worked at other companies where this new feature comes out, and it's $250,000 to license it.
Sure.
So then you have this huge, army behind you to launch it and everything like that. Whereas when Everpure comes out with a new feature, upgrade to that version of Purity and it's free. It's yours. Just use it. And so it's also harder to track metrics on, getting so we focus on, adoption and getting customers to utilize features that save them time and add value, because the more value that we give the customer, the more likely that they are going to see the reduced overhead in their management and, saving their bacon.
Right.
Some of the things like we have like safe mode, right?
Yeah.
The worst call that I get on, and this is rare, once a year, someone's been hit by ransomware, it was basically free in the box.
Right. And
It
it
was
wasn't.
nothing's free, right? Let's say you have a
I
1%
usually
daily
use
change rate,
included, right? But
right?
yeah,
So
included, but also there's a little capacity
yeah,
build
if you
up
wanted to consume
with some of these
5
features,
to
not just safe mode,
10%
but other things, right? There's a little
capacity,
build up. Yeah.
but
But it's a trade-off.
if they would have turned it on,
I know. I know.
and they didn't, and then now they're in trouble.
Yeah, or done
Right.
SSUs to get to the right. I mean, that's something that we continue to
Yes.
promote with one of the campaign teams that I'm on, and certainly related into community. Where, okay, great, we're doing things that are community and user group oriented, but one of the common themes is, to the extent your business and your operations can get to the versions of Purity that have these things in them that add this value and provide this security. And oh, by the way, we make it easy because
Right.
it's all non-disruptively upgradable, that you can do it 11:05 on a Tuesday morning. But it's hard because companies have cycles where they do those things, or they're just kind of happy. So yeah, you're right. It's in the box. It's there.
Yep.
Just want to get more people that are on the right version to take advantage of these features.
And I don't want to state competing technologies or names or anything like
Sure.
that, but I've done it
Right.
on competing technologies,
Yeah.
and it's complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated to set up replication. Typically, a failover is a complicated event. How you test something is different than how you actually do it, which is not the case with Everpure.
Right.
When you're failing over, you're breaking replication links. There's tons of processes that have to be followed. I mean, these are the same competitors that have manuals for safely shutting down the array, right? So that's what we're competing against. And most customers are shocked that ActiveCluster is really, you're setting up a secure replication link. So now these A and B can communicate. You've decided how you want to replicate, synchronous, asynchronous, etc. We have a plethora of ways to replicate on the flash array. But most people who are going to deploy ActiveCluster, we're talking about synchronous.
Yeah.
And we're talking about synchronously stretching your hypervisor cluster.
Yeah.
Which means that the storage is just one cluster.
Yeah.
And even though it's 2 arrays, it's a stretched pod, it's synchronous, so 0 failure, RPO 0, and extremely fast.
Yeah.
Now, having said all of that, I still will sometimes get customers that are so used to a FlashArray//X or XL, and they're like 150, 200 microsecond latency. Even though I'm in the same campus, it's just one building over, I have a 4 or 5 millisecond round trip ping. So I'm going from 0.15, 0.2 to 5.2. They're like, I don't like that. So for those customers, they'll take those handful of databases that are write latency sensitive, ActiveDR them, which is continuously replicating.
Right.
Then they'll sync everything else.
We have those options, right?
But it's all in the box, and they're not mutually exclusive,
Yeah.
which is really amazing.
Yeah. No, early on at Everpure, I was on a number of those calls, right? I was on calls. There were a couple of customers that were running Oracle and running VMware.
Yep.
And it was, and then finally, somebody really smart got on, because it got a little past my area of expertise, and they crafted out that entire scenario. And that was 2019. And we for 6 more years, that customers continued to invest in our technologies, but it was really getting that first thing right with them, right? Because they adopted us first to fix their bootstorm problems, right? With everybody logging on at the same time, and then all of a sudden the database team got wind of it, and it was like, okay, well, but we don't want, we have those latency sensitive things. And so it was a mixture of ActiveCluster in one place, and then async rep here,
Right.
and then, there's now ADR active. So it's great to have those different options.
Yep.
Now we have ActiveCluster for file, right? Active File, ACF, there's lots of different names
Yes.
thrown around. I think formally ActiveCluster File, because we're trying to keep the brand the same as ActiveCluster. Do we follow the same template, the same recipe that we did before?
Very similar.
Largely similar.
Yeah. What's different is most of the competing solutions out there were something.
Yeah.
And then they had to either add block on top of it. So it was like a file system, and now the block on top
And
of
you're
it are
bolting it
files
on.
on the file system.
Right.
Or they didn't have file, and the file is on top of the block. And so there's this filter layer, and it impacts scalability. There's lots of caveats. It's making it work with what you had, where with Purity, yes, we were block first. But when we implemented File, it's at a kind of a cousin layer, whereas it's not on top or underneath. It is you're either coming in through the front end, and the front end is either block or it's File, and then the back end is direct.
There's no dependencies or
perf
translation
issues.
mechanisms
Yep.
or anything like that, right? It's just directly doing that.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
and the fact that we're able to, add new features, and those features aren't now dependent upon something that we've done with block, it's pretty impressive. Now with the ActiveCluster for File, it's going to be an active standby.
Okay.
So there are some hard problems to solve in the file space. So one of the first ones, and this depends on who the client is,
Yeah.
or what the application is, because some clients are super simple.
Yeah.
Something happens,
They
it
got
just
it easy.
retries,
Right.
boom, and it carries on.
Yeah.
So I've had a fight for many years because I'm the Microsoft guy. So I wanted to be able to host VMs on an SMB share.
Right.
Well, what happens if you kill the controller? Or you just reboot the controller because we're doing a non-disruptive upgrade. That controller is only going to be down for 45 seconds, but the session's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's Linux, it retries in half a second and carries on. If it's Windows, the VM is paused. The VM can't unpause because it's waiting for the session to reconnect in the handles, and it will never reconnect. So now you're just waiting for the hypervisor timeout. The timeout hits, all the VMs reboot. So of course, nobody can do this in production.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, we shipped a feature called continuous availability. And the idea there is that those handles are persisted so that if we do an NDU, or, heaven forbid, the controller 0 that happens to be primary melts, right, whatever's going on, the secondary will become primary and take over and carry on no problem. And so in that same mindset, if you have two flash array controllers and the primary is the one in ActiveCluster for File that you're connected to, that's your endpoint, that all those sessions and everything persist when it fails over
Stay up. Yeah.
to the secondary, and that failover is going to happen automatically.
Okay.
And then this is like a 5-hour conversation on, what is quorum and how do clusters work and what about split brain, all these different things.
Yeah.
All that's been taken into consideration.
Yeah.
And it, depending on all the failures, and we don't need to go into all of them, we're ready.
Well, yeah, and for folks that want to dig more into those conversations, particularly the split brain and the controller, I would invite them to go back to the origin of the video podcast where we covered the 15 architectural decisions. And there is an episode where
Very cool.
where
yes.
Andrew Miller and JD Wallace and I go into the, active standby controller, that whole thing, which often has been used as FUD, right, by competitors over the years against us, to where we go, no, it's not. It's actually, it's not a downside. It's actually, here's why we did it and why it works and why it's a benefit. Exactly as you're kind of describing what we can do here to design around this. Is File hard? I know this is I've had this conversation with people before. It's like, as we're looking around doing, replication for File and stuff, and I hit you in the hallway on it and you're like, well, I'm not going to answer that it is, right?
I think that File has more knobs
Okay.
in the initial setup.
Okay.
And so if we go to block,
Yeah.
right, you have to set up the connection between the hosts or the cluster to the block or to the array. And then if you want to extend the disk, you're just changing the size of a volume.
Yeah.
You want to add another disk, you're adding another disk to the host group, right? At half a second and you're done. And now in your hypervisor, you're onboarding that disk and taking it away.
Away you go. Yeah.
But the setup is one time and you're done. You can kind of get away with that in the file space by, I've created this file system. I've exported it with this protocol, with these quotas, with these different policies, etc. But it's about a 6 or 7 step process.
Okay.
So you name the file and you say it should be this big for the file system. But then is it NFS? Is it NFS and SMB, or is it just SMB? If it's SMB, did you check the continuous availability? Do you need continuous availability? And so I'm very thankful that there is a new feature in our fleets. Everybody calls it Fusion, but I don't see Fusion written anywhere. And so I just think of it as Purity.
Yeah.
Right? If you've updated
Purity
the recent
for
build
fleet-
of Purity
for fleet management,
for fleet
right?
management, And who doesn't want to do fleet management? Because some of the really cool use cases, and I'm working on this, you'll see a blog soon. I'm working on a bunch of little nuggets that are fun and simple on why you might want to do this before you even touch any of the higher level feature sets. So what if you wanted to just see all the volumes on all of your flash arrays in one commandlet?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What if you know that you're connected? I'm the Microsoft guy. I'm connected to Windows, and I know this cluster shared volume that I have my VMs on, and I can, in one PowerShell command, find the serial number.
Yeah.
But I don't remember which flash array it's on. It's connected via fiber channel, and I'm not the fiber channel admin, so I don't know. I don't see the access to the switch, see the zones and everything. But I could simply, with Fusion or our advanced fleet functionality, connect to any endpoint. And now if you're doing stuff, I do a lot of stuff with automation and PowerShell. I'm having to connect, authenticating to every single flash array in my environment. And then I'd have to do the call here, do the call here, do the call here.
Yeah.
So then I've set up all these sessions. With the advanced fleet functionality, I'm just going to connect to one, take care of business.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're on flash array 7. Okay.
Yeah, that whole scenario you just went through, I was thinking with, again, I love the way you put it, this advanced fleet management. Okay, yes, we call it Fusion. That's just a one-time thing. Or with the visibility you started going into, what's the serial number where I'm connected? And I'm like, well, you could just ask AI Copilot that in Pure One.
Which is
hey, what is
very cool.
What is this? And it'll, here it is for you, right? So we have all these different ways to make it easier. And those solutions, those capabilities are very much starting to marry as well, right? It's starting to look and I love that you're not hitting, Fusion, it's a name, Pure One, it's a name. But I like that we're kind of navigating away from some of these, like talking about it as a brand and hitting what you said as a capability, is ability for you to simplify the way you manage fleet, to manage the data, and even to become a data strategist for your organization and get away from all this mundane stuff where you're talking about doing the multiple calls or how do I find this? It's a very exciting time.
Very exciting. And all that everything that I've mentioned is just the plumbing.
Right.
And if you talk the next layer up, you've got workloads and presets. Mm-hmm. And that's now in flash array file.
Yeah.
Workloads and presets. So what was I just complaining about? How hard is it for me to add a new disk or grow the disk on block? It's one commandlet, one thing. I'm either creating new pure volume or I'm changing the size of the pure volume. If I need to add a new file system or a new export, I've got to do 20 things, maybe 7. But it could all just be a preset.
Yeah.
So you set it once. Okay, I know every time that I need continuous availability on an SMB export, I'm going to call my Q's SMB export preset done. And it will be every time.
It goes and it carries it out through the system where you need it to be done.
And with ActiveCluster for file, you'll be able to do the same thing in the preset, and the fact that, yes, I need this to be protected, and I need it to be protected in this way, and it will create it on the appropriate flash arrays.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
And this is what I love about engineering right now, too. And I've had other guests in recently where everything that we're doing is fleet management first.
Yes.
Fusion first, fine. But fleet management first. Like we go to design a new capability. And yes, it was the genius of bringing this thing back into purity after it kind of wasn't for a little bit. And that's fine. You kind of bumble through things and go, oh, this is really the way that we should do it. And people rely upon purity. But everything we're doing now is in this Fusion first mentality. And so when I looked at this ActiveCluster file thing, I went, oh, okay, is that another, wait, no, it's in purity. Oh, wait, okay, it fits with all the fleet management and automation and presets that we're still doing. I'm going to hit you with quick hit questions, quick hit queues. I even did quick hit queues. Protocols, you mentioned protocols a moment ago. What are we supporting here with AC file?
Oh my goodness. It's all of our file stuff,
all the
right?
file
it's
stuff,
NFS,
right?
it's SMB, and it's all the different versions. It's
Across
3.x, 4.x.
Right.
SMB, it all just depends on, the security that you're using. Most of the Windows world is 3.x.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have the, unsecure protocol like SMB1 disabled.
Yeah. I'm just making sure there's people that listen and watch who are kind of like, okay, I like it, I'm in.
Yeah,
so and go to an FAQ, like it's on the website. You can check it out on the website or the launch blog, right?
Yeah, and Peter
to get
Scovrup
more.
wrote a good blog on ActiveCluster for File, and one of the things he hinted at, and he showed kind of this matrix of multiple flash arrays all connected in fleets, right?
Well, that was my next question, was the models of flash array.
Okay, so there isn't, so at this point, if the flash array supports, file services, you're you're good to go.
But that's a Purity thing.
That's all built into Purity.
Yeah, it's Purity thing.
You're going to have to use some good sizing to understand, because we do have some flash arrays that are kind of designed for being, disk replacement or tape replacement, right? And so they don't really have the performance to run certain things. You're not going to want, probably the smallest, but if you work with the account team, they'll make sure that you're going to be in a good state.
Ultimately, it's about choice, right? We create choice as opposed to gaps, right? Much better to have choice, too many choices, than to have blatant gaps in the portfolio and in the platform. So I just wanted to get across for folks out there, because people run a lot of different things. It's Purity related, runs on flash array regardless, and this is why we have systems engineers and field solution architects to go help you craft and work the right solution into place. And then other things that you mentioned that are all functional as well, like Pure One works with ActiveCluster File, NDUs, no issue. You just went through that scenario, safe mode, hey, no problem, right? So it's that thing where it's not mutually exclusive, it's inclusive to things. So we're not bringing out new capabilities and technology and going, well, you can use it, but then this thing over here doesn't work.
Right, because it's running at a different layer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just super cool.
Yep.
Did you see it? Last thought, and then I want to get to the Azure Local, because I know you're chomping to talk about that, because you're working so deeply on it. Have you hit any were there any customers that ran the ActiveCluster file that you're aware of? And if not, we can move on.
No, because we're a little bit before,
we're still before
general availability. But
as we're recording this.
I would just add that I'm getting more and more customers coming from a no-block NetApp or Tentry, and I'm the Microsoft guy,
right?
And not bragging or anything, but it's literally like 15x 18 months ago, the number of customers taking a hard look at Hyper-V.
Yeah.
And those customers, most of them are coming from Broadcom. And a lot of them, if they come from a file place, want to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They don't want to switch to block. They don't want to learn data stores and cluster shared volumes. And we're winning more and more and more customers, larger customers, with dozens to almost 100 hypervisor hosts all over SMB.
Okay.
And we have many of those customers that have already put in POs for flash arrays to arrive in summer.
Okay.
Right around the time that we ship
once the bits are available,
and they are going to set all that up for Hyper-V VMs, which is pretty exciting.
It's like Back to the Future, man.
It is.
Right?
I know, and we're getting ready to talk about Azure Local. I will tell you that today, this moment, I have some customers that are on Azure Local with their HCI storage, running VDI, virtual desktops. They call that AVD, or Azure Virtual Desktop. And that has to be on the HCI storage today, this very second. But there's a feature in VDI where you would have a non-persistent desktop. But I need this data to be persistent, because maybe I have a 50 gig mailbox in my client, and I don't want it to connect to, Office 365 online, Microsoft 365, and download that. I'm the doctor. I need to come in. So they have this tool. They bought a company called FS Logic, and kind of the preferred and native path to put that virtual hard disk file that they're going to map up to those VDI destinations is on SMB. And fully supported. And guess where they're loving running it? Because they're not having to deploy a 3-node bare metal Windows server to give highly available file services. It's sitting there, plus all of the thousands of dollars in licenses for everything, right? It's just pointing directly at the flash array, and they love it. Anyway, that's my file piece.
I love when you get so excited about this stuff. It is so great. And with that in mind, let's jump into Azure Local then.
Oh, awesome.
Right? Because you've been working on it you mentioned at the top, right? For 2 years.
No, it's been like 4 or 5
4 or
years.
5 years.
Yeah.
But it's also really in your DNA, right? It is
is.
in your DNA of Microsoft related technologies, and it's Hyper-V adjacent, or I wrote in my show notes
It is Hyper-V.
the artist formerly known as Hyper-V. Like, it's probably too extreme, but
Yep.
I wanted to try to sort of be funny there a little bit.
So Azure Local has only been Azure Local for 2 Novembers.
Okay.
So they announced it 2 Novembers ago,
Okay.
2024 at Ignite, and they said, hey, this thing, Azure Local, is coming. It's going to consume what was formerly known as Azure Stack HCI, but also some other things.
Oh, that's where that went. All right.
That was my original mission, was
That's
to
what
get
you were
external
working on.
storage on
Yeah,
Azure
yeah,
Stack.
that's right. No, I was pinged on that a couple times over the years, even back when I was maybe in Solution Days.
Yes.
I remember seeing that Azure Stack thing on a slide and going, what are we actually doing there? I
So-
should have known it was you under the covers.
I've been
you know?
trying. So Azure Stack is a couple different things. One of them is the original Azure Stack, which became Azure Stack Hub. That technically supports external storage. And in fact, we have white papers. They have white papers. You can connect with iSCSI. That's fine. But there might have been 10 customers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more than that,
Is
but
that
it's
like
small.
an Outpost thing?
I don't know. It's not too many.
Equivalent? Not quite.
Yeah, then there's another Azure Stack that was called Operator Nexus.
Okay.
And the biggest customer globally for that is AT&T.
Okay.
And they use that for their 5G rollout. You may hear news about that product soon under the Azure Local brand. But
All right.
what I'm talking about today is what was Azure Stack HCI.
Okay.
And the marketing arm of Microsoft is so big and strong on Azure Stack HCI and how that's where you need to go. And if you're considering, moving off of VMware, Azure Stack HCI is a good thing to consider. And the reason that you probably don't hear a lot about Hyper-V and Microsoft screaming, Hyper-V is the thing that you should consider, is because most of the customers that are moving off of VMware bought Windows Data Center licenses so that they could deploy more than 2 Windows VMs on the hypervisor host, which meant if you format that ESX host, installed Windows, made it a Hyper-V host, you are not getting out your checkbook. And so there's a revenue issue there.
Okay.
And so if they can convince you to go to Azure Stack HCI, now Azure Local, and to be fair, it's only Azure Local in branding and on the Azure portal. Everywhere on premises and in the tools itself, it all still says Azure Stack.
Say Azure Stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you have software assurance, it's free. Otherwise, it's $10 a core a month.
Okay.
So Azure Stack HCI has some exclusives. One is I was hinting at the Microsoft 365 Local.
Yeah.
And that's a real deal. We're seeing people in the U.S. taking a hard look at that. But that initially started in parts of Europe where, there might not be an Azure data center in Belgium. There might not be an Azure, data center in, the Czech Republic. And so if you have a requirement to have data sovereignty in your country, that's hard to do. It's a little bit disingenuous to call it Microsoft 365 Local because it's actually just a script and it's deploying Exchange server and SharePoint server. It's
Your
not
favorite stuff.
It is. It's not the same code as what's
It's funny how it always points back to that.
It's coming back to that,
right? Yeah.
but it's all easily managed there. But if you don't need AVD, which is kind of exclusive right now to Azure Local, if you don't need Microsoft 365 Local, the other one is containers.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Azure Kubernetes Service, or AKS,
AKS,
was certified for Windows.
Okay.
But 2019, 2022, they purposely didn't certify it for 2025 because they want to kind of direct everybody to Azure Local. And so those are like the exclusives. But like, what is it? I'll talk to customers that the last time they touched Hyper-V. And to be fair, Hyper-V is kind of like ESX. It's a small little shim layer. Like in Windows, when you enable the Hyper-V feature and you reboot, now Hyper-V, that little shim, is touching the hardware. And Windows that you had installed on the bare metal is now above Hyper-V as the parent partition.
Okay.
And every VM that you create is a child partition. But it's similar in that it kind of doesn't feel like it's a Type 1 hypervisor, but it is.
It is.
And the issue there with Hyper-V is that, a lot of customers are trying to understand how competitive it is to VMware and can it do the same things. And the problem in the tech world is that somebody's licensed and trademarked a name. So the vocabulary is different, but it's all the same.
Well, you can kind of do that mapping, right? And we've done that before. I mean, particularly the last 2 years since the Broadcom thing, there was a lot
Definitely.
of that where, I mean, we even had sessions at Accelerate last year where they kind of went through like, okay, here's actually, we had this community meetup that was fascinating.
And that was awesome.
Right? With Eric, right?
Yep.
From Nextiva. And he put that big giant grid up and it was 8 or 9 of the different options that they were considering, hypervisors and containers, and then he just went through like feature by feature. So you can do that mapping.
Yes.
But you do have the brand names that you kind of stumble upon and go, well, wait, it's called that, and
Right.
and that's
It's not
different.
vMotion,
It's
it's live migration.
Yeah, it's live
Yep.
migration, but really you're doing roughly the same thing, and maybe doing it at certain levels of quality that are better or worse than others, I would argue, right? Because that's just how technology works.
Definitely. But the hypervisor, it's this tiny little piece, and what you're really managing and what's really giving you the HA is the failover clustering.
Okay.
Right? That's just kind of built into vSphere. It's like you happen to add a bunch of nodes into a cluster, and then it kind of just does everything. Whereas in Hyper-V, you have to create this cluster, and it's all about failover cluster manager. And that's gone through multiple evolutions, increasing the HA and increasing the ease of use. And I have customers that still, last time they touched it was 2008 R2 days, and thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
And now they're looking at Azure Local and they're like, well, that should be good. Not knowing that you're deploying a renamed Windows Server Core, and it's the exact same thing as Windows. So it's an education to get customers to understand that Microsoft has been heavily investing in the operating system.
That's part of the education.
And
right?
Windows Server 2025 had monstrous scalability. Like, unless you're buying like this multi-million-dollar HP Superdome or like a Cray, you can only get 3 or 4 terabytes of RAM in a server. And they support like an enormous amount. And they support, more cores than you could get in what I consider to be a commercial server, right? It's almost, you have to almost go to like the high limits of what they have in Azure.
Yeah,
but they pushed all that.
Commodity will not get it done, right?
It will not. It will not. And then there's some unique things in the Windows platform, things like GPU partitioning, where you're able to say, depending on the SKU of the GPU, okay, you have this many partitions, and then you can live migrate that VM. So maybe it's running an AI workload, maybe it's a virtual desktop, and you're doing AutoCAD or something like that, and it just works. And that's some cool uniqueness. And that Windows 2025 platform is the core of Azure Local. So on top of Windows, you then get the Azure Arc Resource Bridge VM, which is doing the translation layer between all of the Azure speak, and that's a 40-minute conversation on, is it bicep or ARM templates or all these different things, to what Windows needs, because it lives on Windows. And then something that lives on Windows, if you think of it, you have a virtual machine. Well, you have a file that describes that virtual machine, and it describes that, well, you've asked for it to have this many cores and this much memory, and it has 3 virtual NICs, and it has this one hard disk that's a virtual disk, and here's the path to that virtual disk. And when you have something in Azure, all of the disk and all of the network cards are themselves devices in Azure. So you have to have this kind of hydration functionality to create all those objects in the Azure portal. And in order for that to happen, that's what the Azure Migrate tool does. Well, there's other things that are working on doing that as well, and that will be here very soon.
Good.
But Azure Local is something that we are T-minus 2 weeks from GA.
It's great.
And we're gonna lead with Fiber Channel.
I got to make sure I don't release this.
You can mention all this now.
We've talked about it, haven't we?
And at Last Ignite, this is all, it's in public preview.
Okay.
We have a couple of customers in production. We have an enormous number of customers doing a POC, or proof of concept, right now. Unlike most other integrations out there, you're like, Q's saying in 2 weeks this is going to be GA? Is this, V1 alpha code? Am I going to get fired deploying on this because I didn't, buy IBM? And what this is everything is Windows Server 2025 since last April. This is now this April. So for 12 months, every build of Azure Local has been on Windows 2025. And if you're connecting Fiber Channel to a flash array, we literally have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Windows Server globally connected to flash arrays with 6 to 7 nines of uptime at their level.
Yeah.
Our level, we're 7 plus nines of
Yeah.
uptime.
Yeah.
This is a known good thing. And there's no code change. So V1 of this will be deploy Azure Local. If you don't want to buy $1 million worth of DAS, you can get by with 2 500 gig hard drives for the S2D, and that hyperconverged storage is where they deploy the Azure Arc Resource Bridge VM. And then you point all your containers, your AVD if you so choose, and all your virtual machines to the storage path that's sitting on the flash array. And when you do that, it's just going to be amazing, particularly if you've spent time in the Storage Spaces Direct world. At Ignite, they launched a campus cluster. It was 2 nodes in a rack, 2 nodes in another rack. And technically, it's not the word I'm going to say, but it ends up being that, and that is your quadruple mirroring, right? And that's one of the ways that they're getting some stability there. I've just had a lot of pain with Storage Spaces Direct, and then I sit in a chair where if somebody's mentioning Storage Spaces Direct, it's a 30-minute painful story.
Yeah.
Surely there are people in the world that have not had issues with it. But one of the things that I'm driven to do is to work to get to a point where you can deploy Azure Local, and this is where they will have to make a change in the deployment and the portal with no HCI storage. Because what does that enable? That enables some unique use cases. I'm having trouble right now, as everyone is, finding parts for my servers and ordering new servers. Either the parts are unobtainium, like I need RAM for this model of this compute vendor, and sorry, all the RAM is being allocated for the new servers.
Yeah.
Right? And if you've ever, bought RAM off of eBay, that's fine at home, but you need to have
Not recommended
a component
for production
that is supported by the server vendor for that server SKU, right? And so that's what we're leading with on Azure Local, is if we lead with Fiber Channel, the HBA has to be supported by the server vendor in that server SKU. That's really it on the requirement. Since there's no code change, you do have to have at least 2 SSDs or 2 hard drives in addition to boot. But I anticipate in the very near future that we will be able to deploy without the HCI storage, which means customers that have blades will be able to deploy that have no disk. Maybe they just have some M2 sticks to boot. We'll be able to use those for Azure Local. And then customers that are interested in, so here's the issue, something like 85 to 80%, somewhere in there, of all Azure Local in the world today, because external storage is not GA for 2 weeks. So today is what's today. And 80 to 85% are 4 nodes or less. And a lot of that is because of scale problems with the HCI storage. Totally different conversation on Nutanix.
Yeah.
So I have customers that are looking at Azure Local and saying, okay, I better stick to 4 nodes with the internal storage. I'm coming from 30 node ESX clusters. I've got 5 of those. Now I'm going to have a lot of clusters. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, hey, how do I get greater than 16 node clusters? One of the ways is going to be being able to deploy without HCI. I have a feeling it's coming.
Yeah. It's going to be in there. I just find this whole thing fascinating. And I go back to something that you said about the risk of deployment and being nervous. And it's worth reminding people of the amount of hours, the tens of thousands of hours that we have spent as an organization working in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Definitely.
And it's one of the reasons we have engineers that work up there, or frequently people coming from here to go up there. I mean, it is a super, super strong partnership.
Definitely.
And so much like with Nutanix, when I had Ketan and Cody on to talk through that, and I did ask them pretty point blank on that question, like, how long have we been working on this together? And it's like, well,
Years.
Like years, but really for the last 18 months, our engineering teams have been meeting on a daily basis to work through things and talk through things. And so again, this is not some kind of solution that we've just sort of slapped together and thrown out there.
Yep.
It builds first on all the foundational stuff that you and Barks and others did years and years and years ago, a decade ago, in the Microsoft ecosystem. But now it's almost come full circle to where you have a similar type of solution, but this market moment in the Broadcom VMware thing to get people to go scratch their heads and take a look at their current strategy and maybe go explore other things. And Microsoft was very wise and capitalized on, okay, here we can go build something with equivalence, with functionality, with, because we're not just doing VMs because it's fun and happy. We're doing it to solve business problems, and now doing that. And I love, I extracted out the use cases because they're all very relevant as well, right? I mean, edge computing, AI types of things, and you already hit very cleverly on the local data processing where there's data sovereignty issues, and our old favorite cloud disaster recovery, right? Hybrid DR, and even, well, we've hit it. I mean, it's been at the core at the modernization piece, right? Of a VMware versus something else kind of choice. And so I think we're hitting this at the right time.
Definitely.
To be there for customers to look at that. Because let's face it, you go into almost any enterprise environment, there's going to be some segment of that, some percentage that has been steeped in and working in the Windows and the Microsoft ecosystem. You can't avoid it, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like saying, well, we're just 100% Oracle database shop. No, probably not, right? You're going to have other flavors of things that are in use. And so what's really fascinating to me is going to be all these people that have spent, 15 years just doing VMware stuff to kind of dial back and go, well, yeah, I remember that Windows Server stuff I did. And well, now we're kind of going that direction. And we've got a good solution that we're playing with it. And it's all the great stuff that FlashArray always has done for virtualization, right? In terms of efficiency.
Definitely.
Super fun.
And all the stuff that's built into Purity will just work.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned. We're going to see some cool stuff with ActiveDR and ActiveCluster.
Love it.
And Azure Local soon.
Maybe that's my common theme. Sorry to jump in there.
Yeah.
Right? This episode, as much as we've talked about new shiny widgets that are exciting, you and I have kept coming back to Purity, right? I've kept coming back to the foundational capabilities and functions that we build into the storage management layer.
Definitely.
Maybe that's what it's about. I was looking for a hook.
That's good.
That was the segue I was going to do in between both things, but yeah.
And look forward to more integrations.
Okay.
Right? Like we're working really strongly with the Windows Admin Center team. We're working closely with the BCDR team in the Azure portal. There is going to be a lot of interesting sauce that will make your experience better on the Microsoft platform. And being able to have the agility to move from on-premises to the cloud and back is, I think, super important. Today, typically when people are moving, unless you're doing VMware to AVS, which is Azure VMware Solution, or EVS, where it's VMware to VMware, there hasn't really been something like that. And so to now take an Azure managed workload and move it from on-premises into Azure and back, I think is going to be super powerful and something that some of our partners have been screaming for a long time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And being able to leverage some of the services in Azure. And when you deploy Azure Local, it's just another location in Azure. And so you want to consume all these services you can.
But that's the beautiful thing, that it's connected into the Azure ecosystem,
Yes.
right? It's not a separate one-off kind of thing, which is great. It's an exciting time. You got a plane to catch.
Yes.
But I want to hit, I can't leave you without doing quick hot takes.
Please.
So let's do them as a rapid fire type of thing. What I always ask, area of tech that you think IT leaders or companies should be paying more attention to, maybe a blind spot that they have right now. It can be anything. A lot of people go AI, but, I challenge you not to.
I would say TCO of on-premises.
Ooh, that's a good, okay.
Because a lot of people look at the current projected cost on some things in the cloud. And I sit, again, where I sit, I hear the bad stories, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like it's a mistake for the whole company, but maybe this one business unit, and it's unpredictable costs.
Yeah.
So giving customers the agility to move between clouds or moving a particular workload back on premises because it doesn't make sense or it's too expensive.
Or how about Evergreen One?
Evergreen One's amazing.
How about predictability?
That is giving
the
you the ability to move up, down,
right?
all around,
Yeah.
and a very controlled cost Evergreen One's amazing.
Yeah. But I still see, you make a great point on that TCO of on-prem, because I still see, and this came through in one of the win-loss reports actually the other day, and it was company chose not to go with our solution for this one part of the environment because they have an everything in the cloud. I won't mention which cloud provider, but they had everything strategy. Why? Like,
Right.
what is that? So I still think there's that, and that feels like an older mentality too. Okay. This is the most fun one that I do with people, and you're huge into tech, and I don't know, maybe this is something that you did at Everpure or also, but what's a big mess up that you did as an IT guy or solution architect, like something that you messed up that comes
So
to
many.
mind? Well, give us your best or your favorite one or your funniest one.
Oh man, a funny mess up.
Something you broke, you hit the wrong key, you blew something away.
I will tell you that in most of my adult life, if you are connected to a big fancy SAN
Yeah.
and you accidentally delete something and you're telling your finger to stop and it still does it,
Yeah.
okay, we just burned a day
Okay.
or the last 3 days.
Okay. So
And I've
that's
done
happened.
that.
You've done
Yeah.
that. You burned. That's enough. You don't have to go into
Yeah,
more detail,
that-
but like burning a day by.
Not even safe mode, just having
Right.
a recycle bin impurity.
Sure.
I've even saved myself with that.
Yeah. But it's that thing where
Yep.
your mind's going,
No.
and then you,
Yep.
oh man, you hit that. Yeah, I did that in Asana today with something, and I'm like, wow, how do I have to go rebuild this? Not a day, but
Yep.
much quicker. What do you wish the younger the younger Robert Quimbey would have known? 15, 20, 20 years ago. What do you wish somebody would have told you, or that you spent more time doing?
That being logically right doesn't make you right. So I would say,
I like
from
that.
a relationship perspective, understanding somebody's point of view, and
Yeah.
even if it seems illogical or not worth the effort, it can be worth the effort if you delight somebody you care about.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'm
That's very
doing that more
human.
now, but I wish I
No,
had done
but
that
it's very
more as a
human.
younger.
And it's probably personality based too, right? Because
Yep.
you come a little bit more from, I imagine, the engineering side. Things in engineering are either on or off,
Yes.
right? They're zeros or ones. The voltage is above or below a certain line, whatever you want to use. And then there's those of us who are a little bit, more squishy from a humanities background, and we live in and particularly in marketing, right? We live in the gray all the time. So
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. It's
Awesome.
logically right doesn't necessarily mean right, and to give on that. Exciting time. 2 new fascinating solutions. You want to come down and do this again?
I do.
Another time?
We're going to have a ton
It was
in the
super
next
fun.
quarter. It's
yeah,
going to be amazing.
I want to do it once you start seeing. I mean, you mentioned all the interest in the Azure Local, and as you're out, listening to customers.
Yes.
Seeing maybe what kind of things that they're starting to do with ActiveCluster File. Be fun to have you come back and do that, and then I'll let you cover Nutanix things the
Awesome.
next time, because I know you're all about that.
Yeah, this summer, ton there too.
Super. Did you have
Thank you,
fun?
sir.
Was it
This is
fun?
great.
It's fun.
Love it.
First time in a
Yep.
long time. For folks out there, look for these exciting new announcements that are coming out. You already talked about the public announcement, the GA. Talk to your SE, talk to your account teams, pull in your local FSAs, principal technologists to run you through this. If you're going to accelerate, we have mini theater sessions and breakouts that will cover all of these. I've got Carnes doing the ActiveCluster
Awesome.
File. I've got, I think, Anand doing Azure Local,
Yeah.
right? So we're locked and loaded with these, so you can learn more at Accelerate. And of course, we'd love to have you there. We're building a fantastic program. If you want to find Rob Quimbey, very available out in Blogland and certainly on LinkedIn, and a great resource.
Starting a
Super
little
helpful.
blog just for a little bit. It's
Yeah.
called purepowershell.com.
Love it. Carrying on the posh blog. Beautiful. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert Quimby, for coming on today. Great guest. And as always, tell a friend, tell a colleague, and share the program. And we will keep the great guests like Mr. Q coming on to the program. And with that, we will wrap for Everpure. For my good buddy, Robert Quimby, this is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.